Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have AseptiScope Inc. It's a private company driven to bring forward novel solutions that ensure infection protection for clinician and patient. It's a privately funded San Diego-based company founded in 2016 and led by clinical innovation experts, leading medical researchers, and practicing physicians. We will be speaking with founder and CEO Scott Matter. But first, let's start with the video. Roll it.
The CDC has announced new 2024 guidelines to prevent transmission of pathogens to reduce healthcare-associated infections. Stethoscopes, known to be contaminated with dangerous pathogens, now are recognized to transmit pathogens through touch. As with hand hygiene, the new guidelines recommend that stethoscope hygiene be performed between each patient exam. Previous methods for stethoscope hygiene have proved insufficient. Cleaning with alcohol has low compliance. Meanwhile, disposable stethoscopes continue to spread pathogens, and their poor auscultation quality makes them unreasonably difficult for exams. A timely innovation, the Discover system, has recently been launched and makes stethoscopes touch-free for the very first time. This technology is a visible solution, elevating both patient safety and patient satisfaction. Easy to use and immediate, the Discover system provides workflow compatibility for the user. Each Discover provides high-fidelity acoustic performance. And most importantly, it protects patients from exposure. Protecting your patients has never been easier. Order your starter kit today with a free Discover system dispenser. Let's get you started.
All right, the floor is yours, Scott, whenever you're ready.
Thanks so much, Anna. Appreciate it. It's nice to be here with you at Emerging Growth, and thanks everybody for joining me. The commercial you just saw is one that actually goes out next week into public streaming, and it is one that really talks about the area where we are right now. We've come to a juncture at AseptiScope we've been working towards, and it kicks off with new CDC guidelines. I want to walk you through why this is such an important moment as I introduce you to AseptiScope. Forward-looking statements are what they are, so I'll take you back in time to when my team and I introduced innovation together the last time, and that was in the early part of the 2000s, where we introduced a novel cardiovascular biomarker on a unique handheld point-of-care platform at a young company called BioSite. You can see the data monitor slide to the right that shows in gold the analyst forecasts for BNP versus the actual BNP sales that we generated over the course of the same period, running to an exponent beyond what they predicted. And it was really done through a method that I brought from pharmaceuticals back east when I moved to San Diego with groups like Bristol Myers, Novo Nordisk, introducing technology like glucophage for diabetes, still foundational therapy. But we did this at a unique in vitro diagnostics company with a point-of-care platform, and now we're moving to do it in a new area, also driven into a new market that is founded by new guidelines, and we'll walk you through how that will generate intense sales in this new category. The category is healthcare-associated infection, or HAI. This is an existential problem for healthcare delivery. You should not, at your most vulnerable, wonder if going to the hospital is a good thing. Yet 200,000 patients a year in the U.S. die from healthcare-associated infections, or HAI. $140 billion a year spent in this country addressing it. At its core, hand hygiene is the cornerstone of infection control protocols, and it reduces HAI rates when delivered properly. Recently, it's become known that the clinicians have a third hand that is unwashed and contaminated. It's the most prolifically used medical device technology in the world. It's called the stethoscope. And it is touching U.S. patients over 5 billion times a year, and the vast majority of the time, heavily contaminated. Cleaning with alcohol has never been fully effective. It destroys the stethoscope and has low compliance. The CDC guidelines in 2007 are about to be updated. In 2024, already announced with the draft guidelines on site, on their website available, is a new stethoscope hygiene requirement that now announces the stethoscope as a vector that transmits through touch. We are here to make stethoscopes touch-free for the very first time with the Discover system. At AseptiScope, we got into this business to create a solution in this category to launch our commercial life. The Discover system makes every stethoscope touch-free by placing an aseptic, totally clean barrier between the patient and the stethoscope. This is a single-use barrier, a glove for the clinician's third hand. It applies immediately. It is an effective physical barrier as shielding patients from all contaminants, and it is acoustically invisible, so clinicians have a perfect auscultation or stethoscope exam. The system is, as you can imagine, is clinician and patient preferred. If you don't see it intuitively, you can get online on our clinical library and see where that data in controlled studies is now published in the peer-reviewed literature. Innovation has not lent a hand here. There's two failed options that occupy 100% of the market in cleaning and hygiene for stethoscopes. One is alcohol cleaning, 70% alcohol solutions. The CDC recommends they clean between every patient for 60 seconds. You can imagine why that doesn't work and why compliance is low. Workflow is way too heavy in healthcare delivery. The other option are cheap disposable stethoscopes called single patient stethoscopes. You can't hear through them. They don't stop cross-contamination between patients. And ultimately, they are also, now the staff has to share contaminated earbuds. These options just are not practical. They've not been designed for this purpose. At AseptiScope, we've gone about the heavy lifting of designing a real solution. And this is what we've been doing since 2018. And I'm going to walk you through the same method we used in developing novel pharmaceuticals, the in vitro diagnostic tests on point-of-care platforms. We're doing now at AseptiScope, and we've done it from an investor standpoint with a $2.5 million seed round that we started in 2018. Brookline Capital Markets brought us through an oversubscribed A round at $6 million, and now we have an open convertible note, a $4 million note, where we're still collecting the last million of that note right now, and that is a 20% discount convertible note. And we welcome you to join that as we work to our next converting event. But this is driving a lot of activity, and it's what we call at AseptiScope a triad of a development triad. So product development, clinical development, and market development ultimately lead to a beautiful new nascent market exploding as it becomes a standard of care and a new technology that fills that void. The Discover system is our product development. We've moved from form factors, we've applied our patents, or filed our patents right through manufacturing license, and now delivering commercial product to hospitals. Clinical development, the validation of what this product does, has been done in a stepwise fashion, consistent with CDC requirements, showing not only strong efficacy, but superiority to standard of care. Acoustic superiority, performance, workflow compatibility, and user advocacy, and now patient satisfaction, all on our clinical library online, published in the peer review. Now we've also had to go through the heavy lifting of developing this market, developing awareness and recognition of the stethoscope's snake in the grass standing as something that moves from patient to patient, undermining hand hygiene protocols. This has been done consistently in direct parallel path to our development program, and it's leading to and contributive to the CDC shifting their guidelines this year, and I'll introduce you to that. But first, I want to introduce you to the platform itself. The Discover system is, I'll move back so that I can see if this is, let's see if this comes online. Looks like the Discover system is not showing here for you. See if we can get it on. I'll bounce up to this slide so I can show you it working. Oh. You see on the right-hand side a GIF, a lower right. This is the Discover system. It is a wall-mounted dispenser, about the footprint of a Purell dispenser. It has 420 single-use barriers in it, and it goes into each hand hygiene station so that now you can protect the patients from the third hand, the stethoscope. It takes a second to apply in a totally touch-free manner and makes every stethoscope touch-free and breaks transmission for that purpose. What is easy to the user is actually quite complex beneath. It also collects data for demonstrated compliance when Joint Commission comes into hospitals and asks them to demonstrate how they are protecting patients from the stethoscope. So this is the Discover system, and we're very excited about it. I will Now bounce forward a few slides, and we will. Here we go. It's like there's a little technical glitch. Okay, here we go. We're back on track. Thanks for your patience. The Discover system I've just shown you actually comes in a wall-mounted dispenser and clean cassettes that we ship. So this is a razor blade model. The cassettes drive our profitability over the course of time through these wall-mounted dispensing units. The proof is in the pudding, and we've done the heavy lifting of going into clinical trials, demonstrating the impact of this technology. And ultimately, we are going to block the stethoscope from ever touching patients and transmitting. So that vector is broken, and our intellectual property allows us to do this in a portfolioed approach. And the results will be the same as we go out to other vectors as well. But you can see on the right-hand side, this is proven highly effective. It's superior to standard of care. Doctors, nurses, techs, they can hear through the stethoscope with acoustic invisibility, a term that was coined by the researchers themselves when they published those results in the Mayo Clinic proceedings. Ease of use, workflow compatibility, all demonstrated, proven, and published. Now, we've gone out into the market to generate awareness. Nice pickup here in the third quarter of last year in the USA Today with a feature story. This product is meaningful to everybody. If you are somebody who has been to the doctor and had an exam, if you have a child that has had the flu, if you have a respiratory condition, if you're prenatal, if you have a parent who's in assisted living, everyone knows that the stethoscope is touching all patients all the time. This is not a nuanced market space. This is the largest market in the world because chronic and acute assessment of patients is inclusive of stethoscope exams. And that is still the case today because it is a uniquely available and cost-effective tool, but it needs to be protected. So we've been alerting not only the professional community, but the lay community. We now have gone out into the market. Last quarter, we started and initiated our full launch. It is a focused market segmentation analysis that brings us to our early targets. As a young startup, we need to focus. I'll show you the compromised populations and the healthcare providers of those that we're going after. We also add a field sales force promotion. This is through cultivated, territorialized 1099 sales reps that are territorialized throughout the US, and we train them, equip them, and incentivize them. We have very strong strategic digital programming. We'll walk you through that. It drives reach and frequency out into the market, and it's a new age with digital programming. So you have a lot of nuance to this type of an approach, and it's working beautifully. The other thing, this is a class 1 medical device. As a result, we have an e-commerce platform. This e-commerce platform allows us to sell online where customers can purchase, pay, ship, and install, and that is actively happening today. Let's talk about these things real quickly. Our targeted population, as indicated by this MedPage Today column by a doctor at Westchester, New York, Avi Don, calls the stethoscope and stethoscope hygiene the next frontier in infection control, and he highlights patients that are particularly compromised. Cancer care patients are, by the definition of their care, immune suppressed. Immune compromised patients include the very elderly, the very young, and also those being treated or in transplantation or burn units, et cetera. It's not a small population, but it is very reachable. And veteran health. Veterans across the United States and the world, in the country's largest integrated health system, are now accessing the Discover system and getting the same level of support that the private payer world does. Our territorialized 1099 sales reps are curated and managed by our VP of Sales, Kevin Burns, who's doing a great job. He is step-by-step territorializing and populating the country, being very judicious with these folks so that we get the right folks on board, that we equip them, that we train them, that we incentivize them. And like any other sales force, we're seeing some of them bust out of the gates, as they are very fast adopters, and they're being rewarded, and the group is responding in kind. On the digital platform side, you can see on the top from left to right, Online awareness is growing. Educational leadership is something that we highlight with these programs. And now that we are available for launch, digital promotion of the Discover system. You can see on the lower left, the metrics quarter by quarter are jumping. We are reaching more and more people every quarter. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the quality of these targets. We're not going out randomly. We're going out judiciously into decision makers and clinical care providers. And you can see that this is, it looks like there might be a embedded video problem that we're dealing with. So this is the second slide we've done with this. I will just walk past this slide, but suffice it to say, experts in the area of infection control and experts that are managing the patient care delivery in high acuity settings, in chronic care settings, are the ones that are ultimately the champions of this technology. Inside at AseptiScope headquarters here at Scripps Ranch in San Diego, we have Kevin Delsigore and Kelly Powers, my co-founder and operations chief, who are holding our manufacturing license from Q3 last year as we got out on the market. They are curating our supply chain, our warehousing, our clean rooms, our assembly, delivery, and shipments. And we are out on the market today, and they are really doing a fantastic job. We have online clinical libraries and an online e-commerce portal where you can buy the system, and it's getting busy. Kevin Burns, our VP of Sales, is pictured here on the far left at a display table, and then just beside that, installing, along with Anthony Pham, our team of ISRs. And you can order this online and have it installed immediately by a professional group that we contract with, or you can, it's simple installation, so you can get going immediately. Our early adopters are, as mentioned, in a segment that we are approaching in a stepwise fashion. St. Joseph's in the Pacific Northwest, our first group up in that region, is part of LifePoint, a national healthcare provider, and they have a cancer clinic that they've equipped with the Discover system. Dignity Health, one of the top 5 healthcare providers in the country, their flagship Mercy San Juan now has, we've provided a PO to install at Dignity Health. And this is a very important center for us that we're getting going. UCSD, University of California, San Diego, is part of the UC Health group statewide. They have just installed in La Jolla. They have installed in their downtown branch, and again at their urgent care center. On the islands, Pacific Health, their Palomomi clinic has the product up and running. And we have our first VA. We're on the electronic catalog system within the VA medical system and Department of Health and Department of Defense. And we have now our purchase within the largest integrated health system in the world, VA Memphis. And they're very happy with the technology. Our first Manhattan group, Columbia affiliated physician. There's a 400 physician group, obviously affiliated with Columbia Presbyterian, and as part of a system where we can expand over time. And everybody knows the Cleveland Clinic Foundation. We have just installed 50 units there in their ICUs and burn units as part of a designed bundle approach to tamping out infection there. And the chief nursing officer, Nancy Albert, a big fan and a strong advocate for stethoscope hygiene, somebody who was on board early with this project. So you can see that we're getting going right now, and we're doing it just like we did in the days of BioSite when I showed you the data monitor slide. The first year or so, you're kind of knocking on doors, and everybody likes this system, but it's still, until the CDC guidelines come through, it's actually at the discretion of the hospital whether or not to protect their patients from contaminated stethoscopes. So getting on board with the folks that are most compromised makes good sense. It's working nicely. And the UC Health system is one that's a good example of an area where there's an enormous opportunity as we get into UCSD to expand within this enormous statewide health delivery complex. And as we do that, you can see in the upper row, we start with a single revenue stream. The annual revenue potential at UCSD is about $633,000. The total revenue stream is approaching $5 million for the UC Health system broadly. So getting in there is very important. You don't just protect some patients, you protect them all. So they will expand as we go. And if you look down to the bottom row, you will see that the entire, if we just go with these systems right now and grow organically in those systems, it's approaching $50 million of annualized revenue. So we're very excited about that. Now comes the big the big drum roll for what we've worked towards. It's not coincidental that the CDC's that the American Heart Association elevated their guidelines in the BioSite data monitor slide I showed you. There's a methodology and a plan to do that. Now, sure enough, at the plans that we've laid for market development and direct work with the CDC has moved for them to change guidelines from what was in 2007, a guideline that actually just said stethoscopes are a non-critical item, to what they're saying in 2024, that the stethoscope is a vector that transmits via touch. In 2007, they said hygiene periodically or when visibly soiled. Now, when you think about a vector that's as densely populated and contaminated as the hands, that is scary that that's been the guideline until now. Guidelines in 2024 will announce hygiene is required prior to each patient encounter. So this is elevated to the level of the hands. And they used to highlight single patient stethoscopes to reduce transmission. They now have broadened that to make way for the Discover system, as dedicated disposable equipment may reduce transmission. So this is laid up perfectly, and it's based on the evidence of the data for an innovation that we have driven right to the marketplace. So we're very excited about it, and our forecast is now driven off of actual accounts and as well as the epidemiology of stethoscope exams across the country. This is our U.S. forecast, and guidelines have already been announced. They will be in final form within the next 6 weeks, and we will jettison into this broad market where the market is now in need of a solution. We're starting in the U.S. It's a very nice opportunity, but we now have systems with distributors that have been selected in Asia and Europe, and those are RUO units, and we plan on by mid next year launching internationally. This is 100 billion units just in the total accessible market. Think about every time a stethoscope touches a patient and the need to protect that patient. So we're very excited about it, but it doesn't stop there. We're not just a stethoscope hygiene company. Our parent and family intellectual property protects us for aseptic delivery of single-use barriers to stethoscopes, ultrasound probes, hands, and more. So we're very excited about where we're going with this technology. And we will go out, and we've asked customers who are using the Discover system if they would like this technology for other applications like this. And it's a resounding yes. We've also published this in our online clinical library. Our exit strategy is to be aware of several different factors. One on the left, our routine and ongoing relationship with 3M Health. And in the middle, we've had industry groups that outsource their innovation come into the office and visit with us. And our Brookline Capital Markets broker has been, who is parented by Arcadia, is always very aware and provided us with opportunities to get into the public market. And we're preparing for any of those. In the meantime, we're laser focused on delivering solutions with the Discover system to the market space. The pivotal progress points through 2023 are now leading us to a tremendous entrance in 2024, our first launch year, with CDC guidelines already announced, with the Discover System's first National Influence Center. You can see the ones that are candidates right now. We've walked you through. Integrated compliance and remote monitoring provides ongoing unique value for hospitals as this becomes a standard. International launch and our portfolio programming are all in line. Once again, we have an open convertible note round. It's a 20% discount round. Use of funds are directly driving our commercialization and growth of the Discover system. If you like what I have to say, but you'd like to hear it from a different mouth, we have investors that have been very integrated and involved, healthcare entrepreneurs, Tesla mechanical engineers, medical device experts, and infection control physicians. All are ready to represent their experience as investors at AseptiScope. Please ask me for access to that. My name is Scott Mader, CEO and co-founder at AseptiScope. I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure introducing you to our company, where we are providing infection protection for clinicians and patients. Thank you very much. Anna, back to you.
Great job, Scott. All right, we've got a few minutes for questions. First of all, let's talk about timing. So the CDC is issuing stethoscope hygiene guidelines just as you are launching your solution. So is this serendipitous? Did you precipitate this timing? How did this work out?
Well, thanks. It's a great question. And the data is the data. We got into this business with a case analysis that told us that stethoscope contamination was a major problem. We really got on board and started populating the literature with more evidence than that, and ultimately started conferring with the CDC. Public forums, we had advocates and clinicians get on and talk about this problem and their concern with it. So we helped what was a big body of literature get to the point that ultimately increased the CDC's attention to this and expedited these new guidelines.
And Chris Graham has a follow-up asking what caused the CDC to make these guidelines? What type of studies were done and what types of bacteria lead to these type of ailments you mentioned?
It's very interesting. It's a great question because the resistant pathogens of greatest concern on the hands and the stethoscope are things like MRSA, things like C. diff, very virulent bugs that we've heard of before. And the stethoscope is just like the hands. It also transmits these pathogens very effectively. And ultimately, the thing goes beyond that. When you're in epidemiologic infectious disease, you recognize that simply sharing somebody else's human biome, basically, with another person is not the healthiest thing for the individual. And so a complete block just makes good sense. The CDC recognized the very consistent data in the literature and the need to change this.
I'm going to combine two questions from Luke Welch and Al, talking about the technology that cleans and sterilizes. What is it? Is it UV or something similar? And is there currently nothing that sterilizes a stethoscope? Talk about that.
Sure. Well, the thing about it is sterilizing stethoscopes can be done, but stethoscopes move from patient to patient with great routine. They're part of virtually every exam in acute, high acuity care and chronic care. There's nothing that will sterilize it. You can't put it under UV light for 5 minutes and have it do its job. That's an overnight process. You can't hang UV light from your neck while you walk between patients. You yourself are exposed and in harm's way. If you use detergents, what detergents are you using? Some get alcohol-resistant pathogens, for example, spores like C. diff, just don't, they swim comfortably in alcohol. So what do you use? This is a very difficult thing. And ultimately, there's a concept called antimicrobial stewardship, where if you are cleaning with the wrong detergents, you actually can promote the most resistant bugs. So a clean barrier is ultimately an ideal solution. It doesn't contribute to the development of bad bugs and is a 100% barrier to transmission to patients.
David McDonald asks, where is the product now? Prototype, is it in development? And what is it that you need to get this into every doctor's office?
It's a great question. And of course, as a young startup, we have to target low-hanging fruit. We've got the guidelines. They are imminent now. They are announced now. And so what we need to fulfill our note. That's less than $1 million. $4 million beyond that in a converting event gets us to profitability. But ultimately, people are waving their hands now for the technology. Once the guidelines go into place, actually, you have to protect your patient. And ultimately, the Joint Commission that oversees standards of care will come in and ask about it. So hospitals will begin to line up. And we're the only game in town. Not only are we the only one that's highly effective and immediate, but we're the only one that actually collates and collects that information, demonstrating compliance with new guidelines.
And Georgia asks something along those lines. How large is this market and what is your market penetration plan?
So the market penetration plan is to first penetrate large healthcare providers through that low-hanging fruit I'd mentioned. Folks that are caring for immune-compromised patients, cancer care patients, veterans. Getting out there and piercing the market with that gets us installed. We now know through our controlled data that's been released in the peer review that folks, once they use this technology, they love it and comply with it. That makes infection control committees happy. And you don't just protect those patients, you protect them all. One of the things that's really interesting about this question that we're hearing from the folks that are early users, and we have launched, by the way, to answer that question. We're in our first full year launch with the Discover system in the US, is that when patients see this done, the Cleveland Clinic validated this in a study that they published, by the way, that patients in the post-pandemic era, they know what this is. They know they're being protected. And so guess what happens the next time an unprotected stethoscope comes towards them? They don't want it. This promotes compliance and it promotes advocacy for the Discover system and for barriers.
Well, a follow-up question concerning that from Ralph Lynch. Are there actual mandates? Could doctors be fined for not doing this or similar or sometime in the future?
Well, it's very interesting. So that is the truth with hand hygiene and the lack of hand hygiene. This becomes part of medical liability. If you are transmitting pathogens because you're not doing the right thing, that becomes a medical liability case. As the CDC now puts the stethoscope into that queue on par with hands, it will become part of that. As a matter of fact, I'm actively, the Washington State Bar has called us about this and are publishing a piece in their newsletter to all of their attorneys, because this ultimately is a new standard of care.
Well, this is a good timing on your end for sure with this, and important work you're doing, Scott. We are out of time on our end, but we would love to have you back on the conference and giving us some more updates as you progress. Thank you so much for your time and presentation today.
Thank you, Anna, and thanks so much to the audience. It was a pleasure to be here.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back with Trinity Biotech.